Good evening and welcome to another Saturday night in Science Today. Tonight we find ourselves with Dr. X, an expert in evolution who, along with 5 other scientists, have just published their documentary, The Human Footprint in Evolution. Dr. X is now on the phone with us to give us a brief commentary and his expert opinion before we transmit an excerpt on his new documentary, which will be exclusively transmitted through Science Today before its actual DVD release. So, welcome, Dr. X.
Good evening, Sarah. Thank you for having me here tonight. So basically, what my team and I were trying to do in our documentary is show people the impact that we as a human race have had in the evolution of other species. We'll basically show you the evidence we found in different animals and present a deep reflection on the ethical group related with the subject. All the money that we make from this will go straight into our research fund to find a way to preserve endangered species and to promote investigation of less invasive engineering methods in terms of our environment and taking care of our resources. For hundreds of years, species have constantly changed themselves in order to survive to their environments. The idea was first proposed by scientist Charles Darwin back in 1859 in his work The Origin of Species, in which he showed his findings and detailed his conclusions on evolution and natural selection. Now, 157 years later, scientist Dr. X has achieved to establish one of the most terrific correlations on evolution in humankind. We've been constantly altering our surroundings, and we continue to do so if we don't try to stop it.
So, before we can actually get into talking about our discoveries, we should first define some crucial basic concepts that will be necessary for the understanding of our study when we talk about evolution. We're referring to Darwin's theory of evolution, which basically stated that, with time, the heritable characteristic of a species change. It is important to emphasize the fact that only heritable characteristics, or the traits that parents pass to their offspring, will be part of evolution. If an individual, say a shark, gets bitten during his lifetime and loses a piece of his tail, this will not be passed on to the baby sharks. The second crucial concept is natural selection. This is a mechanism by which evolution happens. It's also known by the phrase survival of the fittest. And basically what it means is that only those individuals with the characteristics that allows them to live in their environment, hide, defend themselves from predators, and compete with others in terms of resources will be able to survive. With this, the fittest species will live and reproduce and pass the traits that ensure their survival to their offsprings. Having stated this, let's go right into how humans have impacted the environment and the evolution of our species.
As human activity began to industrialize, huge amounts of CO2 gas have been released into our atmosphere. Trees and natural habitats have been destroyed, and foreign toxic chemicals have been polluting our earth. It's mainly because of a lack of sustainability that have caused a degradation of our natural habitats and changes in global temperature. For these reasons, we've seen changes in the evolution of species that have been forced to adapt for these new environmental conditions.
The Atlantic tomcod, a fish species that has been forced to modify a gene coding for new proteins that help them resist the toxic effects of PCB and other chemicals found in rivers, resulting from the careless waste of industrial chemicals into water sources. The biggest evidence for this was found in the high death rates in those who didn't develop this gene, mainly in the Hudson and Niantic River, as well as the Shinnecock Bay. Tawny owls. Due to the decrease in snowing rates in European forests the last 48 years, these birds have been forced to regulate the amount of phenylalanine protein found in their feathers in order to be darker and have the capability to blend in with their increasingly brown surroundings. Red squirrels. Mainly found in southwest Yukon, for 10 years, red squirrels have been giving birth 2 days earlier than expected because of an increase in the availability of cones from spruce trees, which have been overproducing cones due to warmer springs and drier environments. This has caused the population of red squirrels to increase alarmingly.
I personally believe we should. It's not ethical to take advantage of the mental superiority we have as a species to step over all of our fellow organisms and force them to change their evolutionary patterns because they are not able to survive due to our changes, especially because these changes are damaging us. If we're doing this for a good cause, such as finding the cure of cancer or something that would lead to the overall greater good, then it would be justified. In this case, it isn't. We're destroying our home, increasing disease rates, mutations, and unsustainable lifestyles that will eventually cause yet another massive extinction to occur because, at this rate, the species that live today, including us, will not survive. It's for this reason that all the funds made by the human footprint of evolution will be allocated to incentivize research and application of sustainable development, to ensure our own survival and the survival of our fellow species.
Well, there you have it, folks. The Human Footprint on Evolution will be available in movie theaters and DVD sales starting next week. Thank you for your time, Dr. X, and viewers, that's been all for tonight. We'll catch you next week at the same time, same channel for your weekly science news.